So today I want to talk to you about something that's near and dear to my heart, the world. 7 billion people. In particular, there's a date that stands out last year. October 30th, 2011 was a milestone in human history. It's that date when the world population reached 7 billion. Now what's interesting about that is that's kind of a hard number to wrap your mind around, right? 7 billion, that's not really a tangible number. But to give you an idea of the scale of growth that represents, in 1900, the world's population was 1.6 billion. By 1999, the world's population, that number flipped, was 6.1 billion. So in just about a century, we went from 1.6 to 6.1 billion, and then in less, or just over a decade, went from 6 to 7 billion. So it's staggering to think of what that is and what that means. Thinking of the billions of people around the world right now, what they're doing. But it also begs the question, has the world gotten bigger or smaller because of that? And one of the things that amazes me about this is how we connect with one another and what that means to be one of 7 billion. So a few months before that date, back in the summer of last year, I was sitting on a plane looking outside the window. And I realized as I was staring at this Boeing 747 jumbo jet, 2011, right? 21st century. I was looking at a plane that was first launched in 1969. Right? 1969, more than 40 years ago. Now, the other interesting thing about that date, that year, 1969, if you think of aviation and technology, was also the year we landed a man on the moon. So if you think about from 1903, when the Wright brothers took off from the ground, to 1969, over the course of just 66 years of human history, we went from lifting off the ground to landing on the moon. It's unbelievable, stunning. And yet, I stood out that window thinking, if I had been a passenger on that first flight on that 747, and we just landed a man on the moon, what would I think the year 2011 would be? Right? You'd think of some Jetsons future, some, right? That you're riding your airplane car to work, and we're living in the sky, and you can talk to Rosie the robot as the maid, and she'll make you breakfast and all of that. And so I started to get depressed a little bit, and I thought, well, have we failed at this? Have we done the most and kind of reached our greatest potential? And I thought about a TED Talk that Burt Rutan did. Great discussion about 5 or 6 years ago on how he charts the course of human speed over time, especially since the Industrial Revolution, and how it just starts to take off like an exponential curve. But then unfortunately in the second half of the 20th century, it plateaus, it levels off. So I was getting discouraged, and I thought, well, where are the robots? Where are those things that we hoped and dreamed of as kids that the future would be like? I thought, you know what? It's amazing, but I have something that is incredible in that way in my pocket. You think of something where we can talk to, and it can talk back to us. We can ask it a question, and it can tell us an answer. We can instantly think of communicating with our friends, and it's there. We want to know information, and it's accessible instantaneously. And I was encouraged, and I was emboldened, and so I thought, well, maybe innovation isn't dead. Maybe there are just certain areas where innovation thrives. And so today I want to talk to you about, with the 7 billion people on this planet, what are the tools that all of you, all of us, are armed with, equipped with, for innovation, so that we don't have to give up on our dreams. We don't have to worry about the world 50 years from now being the same that it is today. We can still dream like we do as little kids. And so asking that question, how are we connected? I already kind of gave the answer here. This big number, 6.8 million, what does that represent? That is the number of mobile devices that are activated daily. Every single day across the globe, 6.8 million devices, million phones are activated. To give you scale and perspective on that, that's 3 times the number of babies being born every day. And that's 4 times the number that were activated just a year ago. Staggering number. And so what can we do with that? What tools are out there so we can take advantage of that? If you're a student, if you're a business owner, if you're an artist, what information can you glean with that so that we can connect with the 7 billion? If you do a search for the words Our Mobile Planet, you'll find this tool. It's an amazing thing. It gives you all kinds of options where you can compare different areas of the globe and see how devices are used, how they're adopted, how fast it's happening. And what's amazing is that there are whole areas of the globe that are completely bypassing wires altogether. Rather than connecting through a desktop, rather than paying with a credit card that transmits through a phone line, they're literally using their phones to transact business, to research. And this isn't in the modern cities of the world. These are in some of the most remote areas of the world. Our mobile planet is one of those things that can give you information, tools and knowledge to access and act on what that information is telling you. So if that's how we're connecting, what are we looking for? What's that thing that we all want to know? Well, of course, it's going to be different for everybody. But one thing that stood out to me in the spirit of this talk is the number 450,000. You can tell I like big numbers. I'm attracted to them. And 450,000 stood out to me. If you're wondering what it is, it's the number of searches performed in any given month for the term TED Talk. 450,000 around the world. You do a search for the terms insights for search, you'll find this tool. It's easy to get addicted to it because you find so much information about it. So in this case, you can actually see in this graph the volume of searches done for the term TED Talk. And you can see how in 2006, when the first TED Talks went online, it absolutely exploded. Growth was amazing. But then you can also see in the lower right-hand corner how that affects a global population. These terms, these regional interests, they're indexed. It's hard to see there, but Singapore is actually number 2. Again, it's not by volume, but it's indexed. I love the thought that right now, somebody in Singapore, somebody in India could be viewing this talk as we're sitting here live. It's an amazing thought. So what are we searching for? You can find out whether it's as broad as the term electric car or whether it's as specific as nanotechnology in biomedical devices. You can find what the world is looking for. So who are we connecting to? It's clear we're connecting to each other, right? The 7 billion, though we're getting larger, technology and innovation is bringing us closer together. So you may have heard of the term, I'm sure you have, 6 degrees of separation. That was a statistical study done almost 50 years ago. Keep in mind that would have been right in the middle of the world's population going from 1.6 to 6.1 billion. So clearly not the number that we have right now. But newest studies indicate that rather than being separated by 6 degrees of separation, us with anybody else in the world, it's actually closer to 4.74, to be exact. Now, like any other statistical number, that reflects an average. But what's impressive to me, what stands out to me is how different that number is from 6 degrees, not in just the number, but what it reflects. In the sense that 50 or 100 years ago, 6 degrees of separation probably meant you were separated from somebody else in the Western world, right? Somebody who had access to a telephone or a telegraph or a computer in the later 20th century. But today, because of how we connect, how we communicate with 7 billion, that means that you're just as likely to be 4.74 degrees separated from somebody in sub-Saharan Africa or in China or in developing rural India. That's incredible. It's incredible. What can we learn from them? What can they learn from us? that 50 years ago, 20 years ago wasn't even possible. And what we can see now is an actual graph, a connectedness of how that flows. If you're familiar with mathematics, this image will look very similar to you as a fractal pattern, right? And so it shows kind of the intimacy, even though we aren't always face-to-face, and as some of the TED Talks today have shown, that face-to-face connection is so important. But we've now gotten to the point where we can connect to almost literally anyone around the world. And so this term, if you search for social ripples, you'll find, in this case, it was the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu did a hangout last fall that was live. And this shows the pattern of connectedness that follows that. And so last question, how are we understanding each other? 7 billion people, it's a lot of languages. 6,900, actually, spoken languages. Blew me away, 6,900 spoken languages. Obviously, that's a barrier, right? We almost take it as a luxury that in this room, if we want to share ideas, online, as these videos are posted, we can share ideas in a common language. But not all of us have that luxury. We can't talk to everyone because we speak different languages. Well, again, another tool that's amazing, if you just do a simple search for the word translate, you'll find this tool. At this point, there are 39 languages that it translates. But one of the beautiful things about this is a little microphone icon there, which means that because of this program, because of your phone, you can go to dozens, hundreds of countries around the world and communicate with people, share ideas that normally you wouldn't have been able to do because that robot, that technology in your pocket allows you to connect. So I want to leave you with a story here. National Geographic did an article in 1985 where they sent a team of journalists to war-torn Afghanistan. And what came out of this was this stunning, striking image of this 12-year-old girl who's been known, come to be called the Afghan girl. You may recall kind of the piercing, deep emotion in her eyes, these sea green eyes that told of a difficult life, but a life that had hope, a life that knew there was probably pain ahead. But you couldn't help but stare at those eyes. I want to contrast that with a story of a little boy in Central or South America. You see a snippet of him in the documentary Life in a Day, produced by Ridley Scott last year, where 80,000 YouTube videos were taken from across the world, from individual experiences, and captured in one single day, life in a day. And you see this little boy, you start following him, and he's got this box on his shoulder. He's scurrying around, he's in a hurry to get where he's going. You realize that the box is something he sets up to shine shoes. So at first you see this, you see, he's in a poor area, he's shining shoes for just pocket change and even a couple pieces of candy. And at first, you think his life is the exact same as the Afghan girl more than 2 decades ago. And your heart kind of breaks for that because you think, you want more. You want more than just his life being swallowed up in the sands of time. Until the camera follows him back to his little favela. And he goes, I want to show you the thing I love the most, my prized possession. And he pulls out this laptop. And he says, I can go to Wikipedia. And I can learn about history, science, and math. It's like one great library when I can learn anything I want. I get chills thinking about that because that boy's future is different than any of his other predecessors centuries in the past who are in the same kind of situation. So I want to leave you with a challenge. Think about the Afghan girl. Think about that boy. There's a quote from Henry David Thoreau that goes, most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with a song still in them. I want to ask yourself a question, and I want it to haunt you. I want it to keep you up at night. I want it to burn a fire in your soul that you can't put out until you pursue it. I want to ask yourself, how can you change that boy's life? How will he change our lives? The world can't afford for you to go to your grave with that song still in you. And so as part of the 7 billion, I ask all of you here and watching this video to come alive, to sing that song, to not rest until you do, and to be able to ask the question, how will I change the 7 billion? Thank you.